Hello and welcome back to Rambling Reviews. This time we are taking a look at episode 4, 3? I've lost track of the numbers, but it's the Toad Car. It's a good one. In fact, I would actually go as far to say this might be, full stop, one of the best. It's episode 4. I've just double checked. This might be the best episode of Infinity Train. Oh, that's a bold statement, isn't it? It's a bold statement. I really love this one. I think it's got a really clever premise. So simple, but when you figure it, you just go, oh, that's genius. It explores the characters. At the same time, there's like a really fun concept at its core, but such a simple one. You kick yourself for have never, like, you just go, why has no one done this? It's great. Like, you're trapped in a room. There's one way out, but it's a cruel thing to do. So for those who don't remember, this episode is the one where after being chased by the Flex, the reflective police, Mirror, Tulip, and Jesse escape into the next car along, which is the Toad car. Inside it, there is quite simply it's locked. The police can't get in, but neither Mirror, Tulip, and Jesse can't get out. And the basic reason is the room locks until you kick the Toad. There's a Toad in the room that's just going, please don't kick me. And every time Jesse sort of gets ready to kick him, his number shifts. There is a flaw in the episode we'll come to a little bit later, but it's really good. This season just seems to get better and better. This is by far my favourite of season 2. And it does stand up there, I think, with some of the best ones of Season 1. It really does. I should finish the recap. I'm all over the place already. Barely started. Last week, I had an excuse. So for those who don't know, who you probably noticed, in the last episode, I kept putting it down to, like, hay fever. Oh, I'm not feeling well. It's my hay fever's kicking up. Turns out I was just ill. And I just put it down to hay fever initially. But then, 12 hours later, when I still felt like shit, I was like, this isn't hay fever comes in like waves, a couple hours where I feel crappy and then I feel okay. I just felt awful for like quite a ways after. I actually took a few days off recording these as a result. So yeah, sorry about the quality of the last one, because as rambly as these normally are, there's at least a vague through line cohesion. If I thought I was all over the place this episode, that last one, when I listened to it back when I was editing it, I was like, oh dear lord. That was the truest sense of rambling reviews. But anyway, back to the description of this episode. So basically, the setup is they're stuck in this room until they kick the Toad. The Mirror Police are just outside. One of them's gone off to get something. You assume something to get through the door with brute force. Jesse gets night and they're still in there. Jesse looks at his phone and we see a video of what happened with him and his little brother. Then the Mirror Police start talking to him and trying to convince him, just leave the phone out. When it's morning and light hits it, it'll be reflective and we can get in there. Jesse's obviously annoyed that Mirror Tulip didn't tell him the truth about her being a criminal. So it's like they really set up in a way that you believe that there's a chance Jesse could choose to do it. Every time he goes to get the Toad just to get out of the room, by the way, his number goes up or down. I know it goes up. So he can't do that. So they really are trapped. Well, again, there's another element to that, but we'll come back to it. And then I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so the Mirror Police burst through, and they're about to kick the Toad because the Mirror Police are coming and they're right there. And Jesse and Tulip sort of make it up, and then just as they're about to kick the Toad, sacrifice Jesse's number in order to get them out of there, Alan Dracula ends up sort of accidentally kicking the Toad, which allows them to get out. When they leave, they take the Toad with them. The doors lock with the Mirror Police in between, and because the Toad isn't in there, they can't get out because they can't. How do you get out if you've not got a Toad to kick? So there you go. That's pretty much the setup of the episode and the through line. So let's break it down. First of all, I love the way they coaxed Alan Dracula to come with them, with a leaf, and he just sort of casually defied physics, turned into a bunch of pieces, and just sort of followed them, bouncing. It was. I still, for the life of me, cannot figure out what they're going for with Alan Dracula. I'm enjoying it, but I am very much I still don't understand and I guess this is intentional, if I'm supposed to be intrigued, if I'm supposed to be expecting a reveal of some sort related to him, or if it's just like random Infinity Train nonsense. I feel like it's intent. I feel like there is something going on there. I have no idea what it is. Maybe he's some sort of like glitch character, because he's totally physics defying. Like later in this episode, when it gets to night, he turns into a bunch of pillows, like a pillow version of himself that they can lean on. Yeah, it's a weird one with Alan Dracula. Like, I really don't know what they're going for yet. I'm enjoying it very much, but I'm sort of like, I can't. I'm on that line of not being able to figure out what their intent is. So at the moment, I think I'm leaning towards there is something, because I just feel like they wouldn't have gone all this trouble to create this character if they weren't going to do something with him beyond just existing and following them around and being a reason for Mira Tulip and Jesse to have originally sort of bonded, or a source of gags, which he is, but I don't know beyond that. Love how they're differentiating the Mirror Police more and more. I mean, they were already a bit different in the very first episode they showed up, and but every episode we see them, they separate even more. I absolutely loved how Steve, I think his name is sort of playing good cop. He's voiced by Bradley Whitford, and he's the perfect voice for just like, hey, we're just the good guys. We're just trying to help. We're trying to do the right thing. That's really good. Works really well, and the way they set it up, they use the fact that Mira Tulip MT is kind of, because you don't believe Jesse would just turn on Mira Tulip in a heartbeat, but when he figures out she's been lying to him, then it also makes more sense. You go, well, actually, yeah, like if he feels like she's not been truthful with him, all bets are off in terms of like predicting his behavior, which makes the whole episode feel quite tense, because you really don't know if he is going to betray her. Well, I mean, strictly speaking, you kind of do, because the show wouldn't. If Jesse betrayed Mira Tulip at this point, what's the remaining 6 episodes? They'd be separate, or they'd have to contrive another reason to force them together to make it up, which just feels, yeah. You can get away with that towards the end of a season, when you can get away with dealing with their issues, like in the context of a big finale where everyone's dealing with their issues, but you really can't get away with it in mid-season if you want to keep just showing them going through cars and doing what the usual show's structure. And that's not to say they're not willing to break out of the show's structure. The writers of the show have proven nothing but they're willing to make adjustments when something's been done. In this season's taking a very different approach to the previous one. Well, I suppose not really. Actually, when I think about it, at core, they've shifted the characters around, and it's given the show a different tone. But the actual structure is the same, I suppose. Either way, it didn't seem likely that was going to happen. But if it had, you'd have believed it, which gave it all a bit more tension than it would have normally had. I think. I'm going to reposition. I'm sat really uncomfortably. Oh, that's better. Where was that? 1 second. What is? Sorry, my cat's trying to get in. Let me just check. No, it's all just determined to distract me. Right. So they set it up in a way that you really do believe Jesse could potentially betray Tulip. Too many distractions. I just think the general premise of this episode, the kick the toad thing, is just genius. It's just such a simple dilemma, but there is one big flaw to this episode, and it is the way this is set up. Jesse can't do it because he'd be doing it for Mira Tulip more than himself, because he's not under threat from the police. So if he kicks the toad for Mira Tulip, his number would go up, because that would be him putting someone else above himself again, right? Makes sense. Fits. Perfect. A great dilemma to put that character in. The issue is not really anything to stop Mira Tulip from doing it, and if anything, she's extremely incentivized to, yet she doesn't. And the way they dismiss it in one offhand line of, this is clearly passenger stuff, you've got to deal with this. doesn't hold water for me. I don't buy for a second that Tulip wouldn't go... Sorry, Mirror Tulip, MT, wouldn't just go like... Oh, kick the toad and I'm free? Cool. Kick. Go. Like, she's proven herself to be a slightly more selfish character. So you put them in that situation. What they should have done, I think, is put them at odds with each other. Where Jesse's like, well, no, I can't kick it because my number would go up, but also it's immoral. You can't kick it because you can't just kick a toad. We can't just be kicking toads and create tension between them that way. Where Tulip's like wants to kick the toad because she wants to free herself, and Jesse's trying to defend the toad, and you have them maybe come at the age of that. That's the only thing you could have done really to fix this. I think it is quite a. Despite my early pronunciation, this is one of my favorite episodes of all time of the show, and it really is. There is a flaw in the premise, in that they really just sort of ignore the possibility of just MT being able to do it. I got to get used to calling her MT. Although in this episode she kind of clears up that it's to Jesse that it stands for Mirror Tulip. He finds out everything in this episode in terms of her being a reflection of someone else, which raised some questions for me. There's a bit where she's talking about, you know, being a reflection of Tulip, and she looks in her own hand and sees a reflection of herself. So we've seen her reflected. In the previous episode when the water turned real, she could see herself in it. I have a question. Is she seeing another reflection that's been created by her taking on her own identity? Is there now in existence a Mirror Tulip? If Mirror Tulip, MT, goes into the Chrome car, could she, theoretically, meet a mirror version of herself? Because when she escaped, Tulip, OG Tulip, lost her reflection. Mirror Tulip probably shouldn't have one. Unless, by freeing herself, there's now a Mirror Tulip reflection. Which would be a Mirror Tulip. Now, it's probable that I'm overthinking this. But that really threw me when that thought occurred to me. So, here's hoping to a Chrome Car Part 2 episode. Because that, just like that idea blew my mind a little bit when that occurred to me. But it was in this episode when she looked at her own hand and she saw her reflection that was like... I suddenly went, wait a minute, yeah, she has a reflection. So yeah, crazy. I love the visual of Alan Dracula turning into a bunch of... I know I've already covered it, but the pillows, I just want to make double note of that because that visual is so fun. I do love what they're doing with him visually. It just keeps keeping us engaged. There is one other thing about this episode that I wasn't sure about. I'm not really sure I like the idea that they've been to a bunch of cars already. Because really, from our perspective, from them meeting to this episode, there's only really been one gap that those could have theoretically happened within. And that is the gap between the family tree car and the map car. And between those two, they kind of flow into each other. You know, his number hasn't changed. She's sort of saying, well, welcome to the train. I'm going to be able to help you with this. Like, it feels very much like they only just got out of the... And while physically we don't know that, in this episode he pulls out his phone. Jesse, he's flicking through the images, and we see... I wrote them down. So they were visiting the green car. And Tulip and Alan Dracula was with him. So there's three pictures. The first one is he's got the glasses on the cross-eyed duck, which makes sense because I think Tulip goes through that car before she gets to the black market car, and then before she gets into that sort of family tree car. So I guess I'm trying to do the math in my head. Jesse must have passed through the cross-eyed duck's car alone. then the black market car, and then that's how but he was like maybe a day behind Tulip or two, so that makes sense. He's got a picture of himself with the cross-eyed ducks, and the glasses are on the cross-eyed duck. Then there's a picture of they're in the green car and it's him with Tulip and Alan Dracula, and they're with Mr. Green, the purple grape guy from that short, which is a really funny joke. Love that. And then it seems that they visited the beachside car because they're with Randall, which made me super sad because that could mean no Randall in this series beyond that reference. That makes me really sad. I hope there's more Randall. Please let there be more Randall. Randall and the cat. I want both. I want both deeply. Deeply and sincerely. I'm very, very nervous right now that that's the last we're going to see of either of them. Just gonna wipe a slight tear away for Randall. So clearly they've been on some other adventures, and while that's kind of fun, like, I just don't know. There's two things I'm not sure about that. One is I'm sad about Randall, and the other is that I just don't know if that's kind of feasible that they've been to other cars. Maybe there's nothing to physically say they didn't, but it just feels like if a bunch of cars happened, their character progression went on hold between those two episodes, and it just feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel very natural, because it really did feel like they were carrying on from like the conversation they had at the end of the family tree car about like, oh, I can help you get your number down, to I'm an expert at numbers as they're coming out of a car. Like it feels very much like those two things happened pretty close to each other. I find it hard to believe that they had sort of that half of the conversation of Tulip being like, I'll help you. Then they go through several cars and just don't reference it again, and then conveniently reference it at the start of the other one. But I suppose it's just nitpicking at this point. I thought maybe they could have waited a couple more episodes to do that idea, but obviously you only get one chance to do that because his phone gets destroyed in this episode. Let's not talk about the phone, actually, because why did that not occur to me? I think it might have been in the last one where I was like, oh, how are they going to do flashbacks and getting glimpses of Jesse's life? He has a phone. He's had a phone from the first episode. Of course he's got videos and pictures. And I'm a dumbass. Why did that never occur to me? I was like, oh, maybe they'll go back to they'll find some tapes and they'll go into his memories like they did with Tulip. And I was like, yeah, it's so much simpler than that. So let's break that down. So Jesse is basically had this experience when he was right before he got on the train, where his younger brother Nate, who I actually imagined was closer to his own age, but Nate is much younger than him by the look of it and sound of it in the video. His younger brother Nate is like being coaxed into doing this kind of dangerous stunt to be a man, and Jesse and his friends, who seem like real bad people, I want to refrain from calling them the names I wish to call them, but you know what? They're arseholes. They are the worst. They're sort of like egging him on, and he goes, oh, give me a few seconds. I don't want to fall. And they're like, yeah, one push, and they can't handle. 3, 2, push. They don't even wait to 1 or whatever. And then he falls over and hurts himself, and they're all laughing at him, and mocking him, and it's like, it's really harsh. And this poor kid runs home. He's probably not hurt that bad physically, because he's standing unconscious and he doesn't, like, he's a bit beat up. Maybe he's got a bruise or two, but like he'll be fine physically. But it's clear that's very upsetting emotionally for him. And Jesse obviously was doing it because he was being egged on by his friends, and again, people pleaser Jesse. He's doing what he's trying to fit in more than he is. And I think maybe that is the reframing I need to keep thinking of when I think of Jesse. Maybe it isn't so much about sometimes just doing something for yourself. Maybe it is something more about like not being like peer pressured, like not caring too much about what everyone thinks of you and just doing what's right for you. Maybe is a better way to phrase Jesse's dilemma in this series. I think it's clever. I think it's exactly what I predicted it would be, which is like they referenced the brother. It made sense to me there was going to be a bigger consequence other than the swimming stuff to Jesse's behavior, and if it's the thing that was happened right before it got on his train, I don't think there's necessarily more to that, which makes me think really, because we're only 4 episodes in and we're already at the crux of, in my opinion, Jesse's dilemma. I mean, he's already down to, by the end of this episode, he's down to number 14. So for me, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe MT really is the protagonist of this series, and Jesse's got this arc that's gonna go, but it's running a little. It seems like it's running a little quick. Like it feels like he's way past the midpoint now. This is kind of your mid, like, pressure point. You know, for Tulip, this was what the episode 6. This sort of revelation, as it were. For him, it's episode 4, and I think the reason it's moving a little quicker for Jessie is because I think the last couple episodes are really going to focus on MT and her progress, and I think it all kind of culminates with her, you know, choosing a name and getting her own identity. How exactly that works, I don't know, if I'm being honest, but yeah, I think there's definitely going to be. I think Jesse's story is going to get wrapped up pretty quick, comparatively. I think the end goal here is going to be Tulip in terms of the structure of the series. In terms of where he goes from here, I mean, he's 40, he's down to 14. I feel like there's going to be another setback in his future, where he has to choose to do something for Mirror Tulip. I felt that might be where this goes in the end, is where he has to sort of like, where MT's in trouble. And he has to sort of do something for her that's going to reset his number. I mean, that seems like a good dramatic angle to take on it. Not certain of that, but I feel like that could give him a setback if he chooses that, and then he has to sort of work his way down again. But yeah, I feel like there's a chance he's going to get his portal really early, and then maybe refuse to go through it to help Mirror Tulip with the situation. I think, which is, I guess, what happened a little bit last year, because I'm pretty sure I think OG Tulip, original flavor, really original recipe Tulip, she got her portal and then still went on to save Atticus, if memory serves. Yeah, I think that's what happened. Yeah, I'm almost certain of it. So maybe we'll get that again. Oh, then again, they don't tend to. They're not really repeating any of the plot points from the previous season here. So I don't know. Either way, I think this is really good progress for him. The way they juxtapose that as well with the situation with MT, because she sort of brings that into the debate at the end, you know, when they're having that debate about let me see if I wrote it down. Yeah, after Tulip breaks his phone and he's mad, she's sort of like, you know, says that, yo, you'll sell me out like you did Nate, and then she points out how bad his friends are. She literally says, you know, your friends are bad. So she kind of knows that he got dragged along, like that he wasn't necessarily like he wouldn't have been that cruel to Nate in a world where his friends weren't sort of peer pressuring him. Which is nice, and it's cool the way they link the two plots together, because basically Tulip's concerned he's going to behave the same way and, you know, cave to peer pressure to give her up. I believe him when he says he was never going to do that, but I do feel like they came close to convincing him. On the grounds they might not, they were promising not to hurt her. Even though we know they will, I guess I believe Jesse might believe that. Yeah. The Toad thing as well, I didn't clarify, but no, sorry. Let me, before I get onto that, let's talk about the phone a little bit, actually. Jesse has a phone. Tulip didn't have a phone. Like, the original Tulip didn't have a phone. Does that mean original Tulip was from like a slightly further back time? Because it never occurred to me. She didn't have like a phone. The game she was coding seemed pretty sort of basic, which I assumed at the time was because she was still learning. They seemed kind of blocky and pixel like arty. But now I'm wondering, was she from like the 90s? Like, or maybe the early thousands, before like mobile phones were in the hands of children, you know, before smartphones. Yeah, it's never occurred to me that people could board this train from different time periods. Like, I always assumed the train's time moved forward linearly, like human time, and they do move Okay, so yeah, we've already proven that they do go alongside each other because she was theoretically missing for a couple of months or whatever. But I'm wondering if the trip onto the train, time moves forward for you at the same rate, but the train can pick you up from anywhere in time. So like, could Jesse have been picked up shortly after Tulip, but they're actually 10 years apart in terms of real world time? So when Jesse goes back to his normal life, could he go out there and find OG Tulip, and she's now an adult, with a game design company? I'm not sure. Because if we've established that the time, like I said, moves forward at the same rate in the two, if you spend 2 weeks on that train, you're 2 weeks older, and your life has moved on 2 weeks when you get back home. But yeah, we haven't established whether these portals can pick you up out of any point in time or not. So yeah, I feel like that's possible. Or I'm just baselessly speculating on all sorts of nonsense. Which, let's be realistic, probably accurate. But yeah, because I had a mobile phone towards the end of high school, I think, and it was like 2003, 2004, but it was like an old Nokia brick. It called, it texted, it played Snake. That was about all it did. Didn't even have a camera. They came a little later. So like, yeah, and even that, like, not all kids had those. I got lucky. I inherited one my dad had for his business, and he got an upgrade, and I got the old one. So I got a little bit lucky with that. So like, yeah, it's conceivable Tulips from like the 2000s, like the early thousands, or maybe the 90s. I don't think there's anything specific. I don't know. Did she have a phone? Maybe she did, and I'm just misremembering. Maybe this is all just pointless. No, I can't see any evidence she had a phone. I'm just looking through it now. I'm just looking through, like, I've just done some Googling. No. Huh. Alright, well, there you go. So, yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's purely based on speculation. But, yeah. Wanted to tackle that before I moved on. What else have we got? I think we might be at it. I think that might be everything. Let me have a quick look. We've talked about that. Jesse and his buddies are the worst. I've written here some notes about some of the pictures we see before the phone gets smashed. Jesse flicks through. We see a couple of pictures from his past to give us more hints about what his life was like. I've written here, Jesse builds a fort with his brother. I assume I meant to write fort, but on my phone it either recognised that I used the word fart more than fort and guessed that I meant fart. Fort is not a word I imagine I type very often in my phone. Because on this one, I watched it on my laptop and I typed my notes on my phone. Sometimes I'll either watch it on the TV and type my notes on my laptop, or I'll watch it on my laptop and I'll type my notes on my phone. It depends how I feel about it. So yeah, they build a fort. You can see them in all the pictures. It looks very sweet. Like, they're having fun together. Which, again, it gives you the vibes that, like, when Jesse was like being mean to his brother, it was like kind of out of character for him. Like, he really had been egged into it. It's nice that they really took the time to establish that. I think it's really important that we make sure we don't basically make Jesse look like a monster. You got to take the edges off the behavior and understand that it was a mistake, not a choice he makes all the time. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, dressed as vampires for Halloween. I wondered to myself if that was like the inspiration for calling the Dear Dracula. If he's into that, like maybe he's into vampires, like he thinks they're cool or something. I don't know. Yeah. And then one with the whole family at a lake. Don't imagine that's too significant, but hell, lots of the stuff that were like little hints about Tulip last year came back to be quite like big stuff about her and her family. So, not 100% sure in the end what caused his number to go down to 14. Not kicking the toad, making the choice for himself to not kick the toad, maybe. Because in the end, I don't know if I mentioned, but Alan Dracula ends up kicking it. Neither of them do. Sort of kind of a clever-ish way to solve that dilemma. So yeah, in summary, really great episode. A couple of little flaws that I wasn't two little things I wasn't keen on, but otherwise just a really great episode. of the show. Lots to explore and think about. Certainly going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. But yeah, I mean, easily my favourite episode so far of Book 2, and it certainly stands up with a lot of the top ones from Book 1, in my opinion. So next up, we've got the Parasite car. No theories on that at all. No theories on Alan Dracula. No theories on anything at this point. I'm really interested to see where this goes. We've still got 6 episodes ahead of us to ramble about. So yeah, come back in 2 days' time for more of that. Presuming I keep so the pattern on these is going to be every other day, unless that syncs up with a Tuesday, which is when we release Rewind Reviews, which is our review show where we go back, me and Chris, and look at like an old movie from our childhood that we love. Like Goofy Movie came out this past week, and then I think Lady and the Tramp is the week after. Yeah, so there's this Groundhog Day coming up as well. There's some really good ones coming up, so keep your eye out for those. But if basically if this happens if one of these comes out on a Sunday, don't expect the next one till the Wednesday, because 2 days later will be the Tuesday. But I'm not going to have two things released on the same day, so I'll have a day between them. So yeah, expect it on the Wednesday instead of the Tuesday. But otherwise, it should be every other day. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time when I discuss the Parasite car.